Hello, Elizabeth. How was your day? See more people popping on. Hello, Jenny. Hello, Jody. Hello, Carol. Alright, I just got one quick question before I actually begin. Can you hear that background music? Hello, Haley. Hello, Mom. Okay, perfect. It's not overbearing, correct? Hello, Christy. Okay, awesome. Alright, so what is Appalachian folk magic? The Appalachian folk magic was originated by the European settlers, bringing their knowledge and experience to the Appalachian mountain range and integrating with the Native American tribes. Of their knowledge of land and herbalism between the 17th and 18th centuries. I want to tell you the exact Native Americans, which I have that in a book. I did not write it down. The Native Americans that were mainly influencing the Appalachian mountain range was the Cherokee and the Yuki people, as well as the Iroquois, Shawnee, and Powhatan people. I just wanted to make sure that that was mentioned because it is important to me. Anywho, the European settlers were escaping King James I's demand or want, depending on how you look at the situation, to completely Christianize over in Europe. Sorry, stumbling over my words, I apologize. And a lot of the Europeans did not agree with being Christianized. They were mostly Protestant, and they wanted to practice their own belief systems and the way they practiced for many years. So they wanted to escape that. The Appalachian folk magic is also not a widely practiced magic such as Wicca, Hoodoo, and other ancient folk magic, as it doesn't have a lot of information out there for the older portion of the Appalachian magic, as it was by word of mouth. So a lot of the traditions that we know today... Hello, Sarah! Nice of you to be here. Sorry, squirrel. A lot of what we know today is coming from more of the 18th century, which I'll get into. I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. Lost my train of thought, too. So the older folk magic we don't know too much on, unless you are direct descendant or you directly live within those specific regions that still have these inhabitants today that are still passing down these traditions. It is something that is a little harder to come by. Any questions so far before I start moving along? I don't want to go too fast. I'm trying to pace myself a little bit. Okay, I'm not seeing anything popping up. Okay, moving along then. In the 1700s, the United States had merchant ships that would transport a good called flax, aka a grain, over to Europe and Scotland and Ireland and all of that. Correct. That is correct, Elizabeth. Sorry, lost my train of thought. I was reading comments. That's cool history, Carol. I figured I might as well pause for a moment. Oh, thanks, Sarah. It's very, upbeat and catchy. I don't listen to a lot of bluegrass, but the old bluegrass is nice. Anywho, okay, so let me go back. I'm gonna repeat myself a minute. You're good, Susan. You didn't miss much, and there's always that replay. And welcome. I'm gonna step back a second. Let me restate that so that it focuses in my brain. In the 1700s, the merchant ships from the United States would go over to Europe and Scotland and Ireland, bringing a grain that was called flax. And during this duration, the Scottish and the Irish were having a scruff going on. So the Scottish, as well as some Irish, decided that they wanted to come over to America, so they boarded these ships. They didn't want to convert to the Christianity that was being forced throughout the whole entire European countries. In order to board these ships and come over to the United States, they did have to pay a fee. It was required. They had to pay that fee before they could even board the boats. Once they got over to America, they settled along the Appalachian Mountains. Reason for that is because it was private land. It was the easiest spot to get into. It was cheap. Thanks, Sarah. It was cheap land, and they could practice the way they wanted to. They could practice their religion and their beliefs and their knowledge the way they always practiced and wanted to continue to practice. When they started settling into the Appalachian Mountain Range, that's when they started integrating and noticing the Native Americans that were already settled here. These Native American tribes have lived in these mountains for many centuries, and they had already had the knowledge of how the mountain range was, what herbs were growing in there that were best for the healing properties and protection properties, and the knowledge of where to find water and how the weather and the astrological sides. They you, Jenny. I'll take that feedback greatly. Alright, so now we're going to jump to the next century. We're going into the 18th century, the 1800s. By the 1800s, the traditions, beliefs, superstitions, and herbalism of the Scottish, the Irish, the Europeans, and the Native American tribes were fully blended together. They also, by this point, had incorporated hoodoo traditions from the African Americans that when they finally got out of slavery, had moved into the Appalachian mountain range themselves. They then used and incorporated hoodooism into their practices as well. Brain fart, bear with me. This all then is what form of Appalachian folk magic we know today. Appalachian folk magic was not so much a individualized practice amongst different people and amongst different cultures. It was more of a religion that was brought together by all of these cultures. They integrated their knowledge, their practices, their beliefs, and worked together to create something as a whole. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. As I said before, it's the old traditions. Yeah, I agree. And, there's heavy Christianity influence in it, but there's also a heavy influence of Native American in there. And the rich history of witchcraft that's inside of the Appalachian magic that is practiced today. Not to mention, Appalachian folk magic is an eclectic path. The reason it's such an eclectic path is because they really worked on integrating so many beliefs. Yeah, actually, absolutely. You're kind of ahead of me a little bit, Carol. Not gonna lie. That goes on to what we know today. Appalachian folk magic today is the integration of all different types of pagan to Christianity to the rich Native American history, all blended as one. If you start diving in there, you'll see a lot of Celtic traditions and a lot of German traditions coming in, a lot of their folklore that got brought over to us, which I will not get into too much because that will take away from October. The other thing that I feel is important for you to know is that there was the Appalachian magic version of root workers were divided into 4 groups. These groups were the granny magicians, the goomer doctors, the seers, and the water witches. The granny doctors were the actual root doctors performed by older women of the tribe. Their primary role was to utilize roots, herbs, and plants for healing. As you can guess, they were the older women in that tribe, the grannies, the ones that had the most knowledge that they could also pass down through the lines and the generations, so that way it would stay alive within the tribes. No, you're good, Carol. It's okay. It's okay. It was a good question. No worries. So they were important. They, without their knowledge, we wouldn't have the information we have today. They passed that down. They're the ones that made sure that this stayed alive, even though it's not a very well-known practice. It is what kept them alive and kept it going for how many centuries now? Because there are still people who live in the Appalachian mountain range that live in these tribes and still practice the old ways and still work as a community together the same way it's been practiced for centuries. Moving back to the different types of root workers, the next one in line is the Goomers. The Goomer doctors. Goomers. Same difference, I guess. They were equivalent to the conjure doctors. They were the ones in charge of the spiritual aspect of healing. They utilized the power of charms and chants and spells and the power of touch for healing. They were the ones that were in charge of preparations of charms and talismans and amulets that were worn by other users for their special magical powers. They also made the amulets that hung over the doorways of everyone's houses, and the ones that made sure that those who were in their village were protected from the evil spirits and the evil outside in the mountain range. The next ones were the seers, whom were very important, extremely important, if you will, and they were majorly, they were made up by the majority of women. There was more women that made this group up. Their main roles were to read the spiritually significant signs and omens to foretell the future, to help with the crops. As I said, they lived off the land. They were the ones that, they grew their own foods. They made sure that they followed through the seasons to plant the right plants at the right times. And that's where these seers came into play. They were able to tell you the weather because they watched and read the trees and the plants and animals, the astrological sides, the planets, the moons, the stars. They watched all of this and they studied it and brought that knowledge to the tribe to help them prepare through the seasons of their crops. The last set of root doctors were the water witches, whom were responsible for finding water and other entities within the Appalachian Mountains. They were one with spirits, so they could use spells and specialized objects to find where water would be. They also were tasked to find precious metals and important missing objects with spells. these important objects would be things that the people of the tribe were missing. They lost it. It was an important artifact to them and their family. These water witches would use these spells to bring back these missing objects to these families. Is there any questions so far? Figured I'd give myself a pause and let you guys ask away if there's anything. Yes, thank you, Mom. They were also in charge of finding the best plot of land to grow their crops. They really studied the earth and the astrological movements and animal movements. Thanks, Mom. Alright, I'm not seeing any questions thus far, so I'm going to move on to how you can practice Appalachian folk magic today. It's all about being connected to yourself, to your practice, and to the land. When you look at the history, Elizabeth says, "Thank you, Ma." When you look at the rich history that and the knowledge that you can find on the Appalachian folk magic and how it came about and how they practiced, if you notice, the key thing that was important was the Native Americans' knowledge of the Appalachian mountain range. They were very connected with the land and everything surrounding that land. So the best way...
The reason why the Irish, in other words, came is because they became so integrated with the Indians that they actually started families with them. Just want to say that.
I don't know if anybody heard that, but my mom said another very important fact. When the Irish and the Scottish integrated with the Native Americans as families, like they actually started to populate with them and creating their own families, and that also kept the tribes going and the knowledge going. Stepping on back, rewind. Okay, fast forward again. So the first thing to do is to really connect with the land. Connect with the land. Grounding, meditation practices, be one with nature. Go out to the forest, take walks through nature. While you're walking through nature or sitting in nature, really take note and notice of how the trees look, how the ground feels, the smells that you are smelling, the sounds that you're hearing. Really hone in on your senses. I suggest a journal, if you will. A journal is always a great option, in my opinion. Write down these things, and then you can really look back and see, okay, I can see that I'm really starting to get in tune. If I do this more, I might be able to see different patterns and really hone in on my senses with the land. Another way is to cleanse yourself, cleanse your space, cleanse your tools. Utilize herbs. Utilize the herbs of the land that you live in. That's connecting you to the land. That's connecting you to the properties. Study how the weather shifts are. Like, I know one of the biggest ways I can tell when the rain is coming is watching the leaves flip over. My fiance did not believe me that that was a thing until today would have been a perfect day for it, but the one day we were sitting outside together on the porch, I told him it's gonna rain. He argued with me, told me that it wasn't. I was like, look at the trees. The leaves are flipped over. And he was like, no, they're not. How can you tell? And I was like, go look. The leaves are flipped over. He goes, what do you know? The leaves are flipped over. Why do they do that? Well, they're flipped over so that they can gather the water from the rain so that they can continue to be luxuriously beautiful the way they are. He didn't believe me, but I knew that because I studied the plant life for so long. Oh, well, fun fact for you today. You're welcome, Haley. I studied it for years. I've always enjoyed connecting with nature and finding different things. I can tell what animal is walking around me in the woods just by hearing their footprints. I know the different sounds of different animals, and I can tell you what plants are poisonous and what plants are not. I can tell when I'm near snakes that shouldn't be near me because of how many times I've come across rattlers, and now I can tell when they're near me without them even rattling. It's just a matter of really honing in and connecting to the land around you. Me personally, the Appalachian mountain range runs right through where I live, as well as other mountains that connect to it. And that all surrounds me. I am literally surrounded by, I sit directly in the middle of 3 mountain ranges. And I really have learned to connect with them. I do. I can also smell when the rain is coming. I absolutely adore the smell of rain. The smell of precipitation. Precipitation is very soothing to me. You're in the foothills, Sarah. You're down there in Georgia. Yes, I knew there was a specific word for it. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that, just so we're all clear. You guys can look at that in the comments. The Ozarks, Jenny. Yeah, I mean, I'm right here in PA, and it literally runs, the mountain range runs straight down through one of my favorite walking trails. I didn't even notice that until the one day I decided to finally read the sign. I'm not gonna lie to you. But then you don't, like I said, you want to hone in on that. I do want to pull some specific information from this book, so I am going to show you. It's a great book if you want to know today's Appalachian magic. It talks and touches base on the history, but not a deep dive, but it really hones in on today's practices, spell works, the incorporation of the hoodooism gives you some specific spells and stuff like that, but different elixirs and whatnot. I wanted to... That's what I was missing. Another thing is to give thanks to the earth and its gifts. You can do that. I'm pretty sure I've said it in previous lives. I'll say it again. You can do that just by going out and sitting on the ground and actually feeling the earth and just pouring out your thanks to her silently. You can give her gifts, things that are native to your area and native to your animals, so that way you don't cause any issues with plant life invasions or, hurting any wildlife. But you can give back some of the plants that you cultivated from your area as a gift to the earth for the thanks that she helped you with in one way or another, and to show her that you want to build that connection and that you really are there to build a bond with her, if that makes sense. The only other thing that I will say is be in tune with the mountains, the 4 seasons, the sun, the moon, the stars, the elements. The elements, they're my favorite thing. And the weather. Don't get yourself stuck in your head. There is no wrong way to practice this magic, this type of magic. If you so choose to want to incorporate it into your craft, or you have an interest on learning more on it, don't feel discouraged or that you're practicing it in the wrong way. That's where the eclectic comes from. It is, I probably say it different than everybody else. I hear it say eclectic, I say eclectic. I don't know, it just flows out of my mouth better that way. Sorry for that mini rant. It's an eclectic path. So there is no wrong way to do it. And the greatest thing is that you can incorporate what you already have been practicing and currently practice into this type of magic, because that's what it's all about. It's about bringing traditions together and really honing in as a community or within yourself and being connected with the land. Is there any questions? I know I just dumped a crap load of information on you guys, and I can't really go too much further into things, as they will be touched on my next live when we dive more into the folklore and superstitions. I will say, I have 3 book recommendations that I can recommend to get information from. I have this one. You'll see this book pop up again in October. I will also post these in the pictures of these in the comments if you would like me to. Again, this book, wonderful book. And one of my favorites is this book. Really great information in it. hold on, give me a second. Let me redo that. I got this book as a recommendation. This one as another recommendation. And this one as another recommendation on my books. I'm sorry they were backwards. I apologize on that. Yeah, let's ignore that delightful banking information. You're welcome, Elizabeth. I apologize. And again, I will post those in the comments then so that you guys can see them as well. Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. Alright, is there any questions, comments, concerns, that I can answer now? If not, again, you can always drop questions in the comments. I do look at them, I reply back to them and answer anything that anybody has. And if not, then I am going to let you guys enjoy the ending of your Friday evening for those on the East Coast, possibly West Coast, and for you, Jody, enjoy your day since you are just starting it. You're welcome, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Thank you. I was hoping this wouldn't be too much information. I know you guys like the more hands-on lives, but I really wanted to dump this on you guys. I thought it was a really cool topic for you guys to learn. Alright, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Blessed be, ladies. Bye.